Have you ever wondered what it would look like if a company tried really hard to be cool but absolutely failed and ended up looking stupid? Well, unfortunately, LG was that company, and this is the LG Rumored Touch. Hey guys, welcome back to another Tech Show video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the LG Rumored Touch. Now, before we get into the Rumored Touch, let's talk a little bit about the LG Rumor, specifically the original Rumor, which was launched in September of 2007 and was actually kind of a success, becoming very popular for social teens and business clients who require basic email support. The 3 following years, 2008, 2009, and 2010, were a big boom in the cell phone and smartphone market, and LG thought it would be a good idea to join in the movement by bringing back a dead device. As we know from many other examples of phone companies trying to repeat a previous success, it rarely goes well. However, this wasn't the first time LG had tried to reboot the Rumor, because in 2009, they launched the Rumor 2, which was even less successful than the Rumored Touch from what I can tell. It doesn't end there though, because in 2011, LG announced the Rumor Flex, and in 2013, they announced the Rumor Reflex S. I thought about trying to find a Reflex to take a look at in this video, but it looks like it's pretty much the same thing as the Rumored Touch. So to save your time and my money, today we're just going to be looking at the LG Rumored Touch. And starting with the box, you can already tell what LG was trying to do. They were obviously marketing this in a way that they thought was cool and appealing to teens. I mean, just look at these words they pasted all over the front of the box. Seriously? OMG, XOXO, lol, guess what? And then there's this stupid Facebook conversation screenshot where Michelle DeFloria says, "I can't believe he actually did it, Jeff got a cool new LG Rumored Touch." Then Barbara Nelson says, "Nikki told Jenny what Christine said to Amber about Michelle." Yep, that's pretty much how a rumor starts. Have you heard? Word travels fast. I know, the new LG Rumored Touch is here. I want one. Smiley face. Yeah, LG was really trying hard with this phone, so let's at least give it a chance and subject it to a full review. The Rumored Touch was available in 3 different color options: blue, purple, and the one I have, which is red. And honestly, I feel like this just looks cheap. I mean, it's a pretty eye-searing color that would probably stand out for all the wrong reasons. But I guess LG thought that's what the buyers of this phone would want. But the red color would be more forgivable if they had used a combination of red and black like what they did here on the side. Instead, someone had the great idea to make the bezel around the display and the 3 buttons under the display an ugly brownish color that doesn't at all match the bright red color on the rest of the device. But to be honest, other than the color, this really isn't the ugliest design from the time. Don't get me wrong, this is no HTC, but I've seen worse phone designs and this one is just kind of not very interesting. And that theme seems to be kind of the overall experience with this phone. Yes, there is this slide-out keyboard, but that's probably one of the most interesting things about the phone. And thankfully, it's not a terrible keyboard. It's definitely serviceable, and I'd say it aged quite well despite looking as though it has been well used. And did you notice this little smiley face button? That's where you can insert primitive emojis, or emoticons, into your text conversations. Funny thing is, from what I can tell, you couldn't see these emoticons on the receiving device unless it was a Rumor or other compatible device. I'm sure there were some other LG phones that could view these emoticons, but the Rumor was kind of in a class of its own, so if you wanted to see the emoticons in your friends' text messages, you had to have a Rumor device, which seems crazy today with emojis being standard in most modern smartphones. But then again, this whole thing feels so out of date, and it's not even just because of its age. 2010 was a pretty good year for phones, like even the iPhone 4 was already out. But anyway, this phone is running Brew MP, the 5th and last version of the Brew operating system with no Java file installation support, which means there's no way to sideload apps onto this phone. And while we're on the topic of software, let's talk about something LG was very proud of with this phone, which is Hello UI. Despite the hype around Hello UI, it's really just a little app that helps you organize your contacts. That's literally all it does. And they still gave it a cool name like Hello UI. You get 4 different categories that you can drag and drop contacts into, and then you can arrange them however you want, including dropping them on top of each other if that's what you wanted to do for some reason. You can also customize each contact's face using a photo or the built-in characters. One kind of cool thing about Hello UI is that if you enable the theme, it will automatically change the theme based on the current season. So for example, for summer, you get a beach in the background, the frames around the contact are kind of summery colors, and the 4 categories are shells. I personally think it looks pretty childish and is kind of useless for most people, but Hello UI does make it kind of easier to make calls and texts. You can just find the contact you want and tap it to either send a call or text without scrolling through a long list of contacts, if you happen to be popular enough to have that many contacts. And if you want to start a group chat, you can use the lasso feature by drawing a circle around the contacts that you want to add to the chat. It's fun but not really practically useful since you'll probably only ever be making a group chat with the same people once or twice, but like I said, it's fun and that's what matters, right? And speaking of fun, this phone includes demo versions of Family Feud, Midnight Bowling 2, and The Sims 3. But other than that, as I mentioned earlier, there is really no easy way to sideload apps and games onto this phone that I know of. So games are pretty much out of the question as Sprint's App Store servers are obviously no longer out there. As far as other built-in apps go, we've got the standard Sprint stuff like the Sprint Music Store and all the typical tools LG put in their phones. I always really liked the design of the World Clock app and the intro animation on the Tip Calculators app. You also get built-in social networking apps, as they call them, which were Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, and Sprint's Social Zone. But other than those apps, there's pretty much not a lot going on here, just your default Sprint stuff. Then there's this 2 megapixel camera, which is entirely unremarkable and pretty typical for phones of the time. Of course, there were much better phone cameras, but there are also worse phone cameras, so at the time I'm sure many people would have been okay with it. One weird thing that I noticed is that the physical camera shutter button is on the left side of the phone instead of the right side as you normally would see with most other phones. This means that most people who are used to using it being on the other side might end up covering the camera due to the way you would normally rest your hand. I think the reason they did this though is because since this phone doesn't have a gyroscope, it can't detect if you're holding the phone in portrait or landscape mode when taking a photo. That means if you try to take a landscape photo, the photo will end up rotated. So the only way to tell the phone that you're holding it in landscape mode is to slide up the keyboard. And if the shutter button was on the other side of the phone, it would have become incredibly awkward to use with the screen up. But anyway, that's the camera, not much to talk about here. This phone is overall just not very interesting. For a typical cell phone user who didn't want or need to upgrade to a smartphone, this probably would have been an okay phone. But I feel like LG slightly oversold this thing in their marketing, trying to make it seem more cool than it was. This phone also seemed to be riddled with technical issues from the very beginning, with people complaining about battery life, cell phone signal, and overall usability. And while I can't really say anything on those first two, I would agree with anyone who said this phone is a little bit annoying to use. It is a resistive touch display, which means you have to press down on the display to get it to do anything, and the whole design of the software as well is just kind of convoluted and annoying. But overall, most reviewers seemed quite content with this phone, which makes sense when you consider its very reasonable price of around $100 US. The keyboard is acceptable, and I think I forgot to mention that this phone has a 3.5mm headphone jack, which at the time was becoming pretty much a necessity for many people. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and check out some of my other videos because my channel is full of tech stuff that you might like. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.